When a movie can take an everyday sound and make it synonymous with its brand of terror, it's done a good job. Granted, a tornado siren is already attached to something that's horrifying, but sadly, it's not even the first thought that crosses my mind when I hear that sound. This is 2006's Silent Hill. Spoiler alert, while I might be giving you my opinion on the film, that's no substitute for watching it for yourself. Links to the film are in the description. And for those of you that need to hear this is just a movie. All stunts are for the sake of story and shouldn't be attempted on your own. Viewer discretion is advised. We start off by seeing Rose and Chris crying out for their missing daughter, Sharon. Rose follows a trail that leads to a nearby waterfall, and she finds Sharon standing on the edge of an adjacent ledge. Sharon swoons as she has hallucinations of a burning underground. But when she starts to fall into the abyss, Rose pops up in time to tackle her to the ground. When Chris finally makes it to them, Sharon screams out the name of a town, Silent Hill. In the day, Rose and Sharon are taking a little pit stop on the side of the road, and Rose tries to explain that they're going on a special trip. She tells her that she sometimes dreams of a place called Silent Hill, and they're going there so she can try and figure out what's causing the sleepwalking nightmares. How about no? A simple fix would be to put a lock on her bedroom door, maybe some counseling, but she obviously didn't research it before she left. Back at the house, Chris is trying to get a hold of Rose, but she's ignoring all of his calls. When he finds the laptop on the table, he notices that the search history is about Silent Hill. That night, Rose and Sharon stop at a gas station, and Rose asks about the horrifying drawings. Sharon doesn't remember changing her picture like that, and a nearby cop notices Sharon crying. As Rose goes in to pay for the gas, the cop, Sybil, heads over to Rose's car to question Sharon about if she's okay. Sharon knows all about stranger danger though, and she rolls up the window on Sybil. Meanwhile, Rose's cards have been cut off, and she calls Chris to find out why. Chris tells her that she has to come home and stop this madness, but Rose believes that this is the only way to help Sharon. After hanging up on him, she walks right by Sybil and takes off down the highway again. Farther down the road, Sybil catches up to them and pulls them over. What does Rose do? Well, she pulls over at first, but instead of just answering some questions, she notices a sign that says Silent Hill is just down a side road and takes off. All she had to do was explain that this is her actual daughter and they're going on a little road trip. Once again, Rose proves why she's Mother of the Year. As Rose speeds down the side road, she crashes through a fence that was blocking the road on the other side of a bridge. And as the radio gives crazy feedback, she swerves to avoid hitting a woman in the road. She hits her head on the steering wheel and passes out. When she comes to, Sharon's gone, and the sky is raining ash. When Rose makes it into town, she sees the kind of ghost town that is Silent Hill, and she spots Sharon running down an alley. She gives chase and she's led through the town until she gets to a staircase. As she goes down the stairs, that dreaded tornado siren goes off, and everything goes dark. I'm sorry, but when the entire world goes dark and the little baby monsters pop up, it's time to leave. Goodbye, Sharon. Goodbye, sanity. Look at these little baby creature things. Fun fact, these little monstrosities are actually supposed to represent the children that burned when the town went up in flames years prior. The movie never gets that deep on character development, but if you play the games or read some lore, the Silent Hill series is actually all a big artistic psychiatry class. Rose makes her way into a nearby building, and the creatures seem to be overtaking her. Suddenly, they dissolve with the rest of the world, and Rose closes her eyes for a second. When she comes to, Johnny Cash is playing on a nearby jukebox, and the sun and Ash are back. Rose tries to run out of town now, but it's too late for that. Somehow, the entire town is cut off in this direction. As she looks over the edge, Dahlia creeps up and tells her that only the Dark One opens and closes to the door to Silent Hill. Dahlia tells Rose that the townspeople did terrible things to her daughter, Alessa, and Rose shows her a picture of Sharon to see if she's seen her. Dahlia goes mad because she thinks the picture is of her Alessa, but Rose runs off. She runs all the way back to the car, and she finds a trail of Sharon's pictures. She tries to call Chris while trying to start the car, but she ends up leaving him a voicemail. Just then, Sybil pops up and arrests Rose. When she can't radio base, she decides that they're going to hike back to the previous town. Back outside of town, Chris gets the broken up voicemail just as he comes to the bridge. When Chris gets there, he's taken into town by Inspector Gucci. Meanwhile, Sybil and Rose have hiked all the way back to Sybil's crashed bike, but they find out that the town is cut off this way too. When they go to hike back to Silent Hill, they find someone waddling around the side of the road. It turns out to be another type of creature that spits acid through a hole in its membrane, and Sybil shoots it down. Rose takes this distraction as her chance to run away. and she makes it all the way back to town. Once there, she finds a map that shows her how to get to the school. Once she gets to the school, Rose continues to show her intellect by screaming Sharon's name down the hallway. Now, when you've been attacked by burning children, ghosts, and acid-spitting saran wrap people, you don't barge into a religious cult school and scream. Meanwhile, Chris and Gucci are driving through Silent Hill looking for everyone, but their vision is completely different. A normal ghost town. Gucci explains that he was actually from Silent Hill, and half of the bodies of townspeople were never found. Yeah, apparently they went to Rose's side, because men in gas masks appear, and she books it. Also, this is a huge elementary school for a tiny little town from the 70s. And again, don't you love how Rose's brain goes straight to run away from the first humans in a nightmare town? Soon, she runs into a classroom where she gets a glimpse of how Alessa had been bullied back when the town was still alive. Just then, she hears Sharon running up the stairs, and she chases after her to a bathroom at the end of the hall. Once inside, she checks the stalls, but all she finds is a mangled corpse of the janitor. Inside the janitor's mouth, she sees a key, and she reaches inside to get it. As she goes to leave, she ends up coming face to face with more masked men, and she locks herself inside the bathroom. After they try to beat the door down, the sirens go off, and they hurry away as the world changes again. Suddenly, the janitor crawls out of the stall. What would be your reaction here? Would you just cower in the tiny bathroom with the janitor that was just tied up with barbed wire? Or would you maybe run out of the bathroom? Yeah, I'd let it eat me too. After it makes it halfway through the bathroom, Rose finally decides to run out, and she comes across the masked men as they're consumed by some crazy beetles. She keeps trying to find a way out, but she ends up spotting Alessa at a school desk before falling through a chain link window. Just then, Pyramid Head shows up dragging a huge knife behind him. As she runs through the school, she ends up running right by the same spot that Chris and Gucci are walking through. Rose ends up getting pulled into a closet by Sybil, who barricades the door from Pyramid Head. As the world goes back to normal, he leaves the two of them inside the closet. When Sybil and Rose come out, it's clear that Sybil believes Rose now, but that doesn't help her understand anything. Rose shows Sybil the key that she's got to a hotel, and they decide that that's their next destination. Meanwhile, Chris is escorted to his car and basically told to forget about his wife and daughter. If they find them, they find them. Otherwise, butt out. This is Sean Bean though. He's not going to just lie down quietly. I'm surprised he's made it this long in a movie he isn't the main character of. When Sybil and Rose make it to the hotel, they find Anna throwing debris at Dahlia, and Anna explains that she's out getting food for her church. Sybil finds another drawing in the mailbox for one of the apartments, and they head upstairs to investigate. Meanwhile, Chris is investigating the town records for Silent Hill. He ends up finding a lot of information on Silent Hill, and he even finds pictures of Alessa. Back in the hotel, the three women come across a picture of the first witch burning, and Rose finds the apartment door they're looking for behind it. After hopping through the window to another building, Rose finds Sharon, and she chases after her. After hopping across beams that are hanging over the pit to hell, she approaches the girl and finds out that it's actually Alessa this whole time. After Alessa traumatizes her with a little pyromaniac show where she sets herself on fire, Sybil gives Rose a way back over the pit. When she tells the others about Alessa, Anna mentions that they don't talk about her. Soon the sirens go off, and the three of them run for the church. Once there, they come across Dahlia on the steps, and Rose asks why Alessa would have brought them to Silent Hill. Just then, the darkness consumes the town, and Pyramid Head arrives. Rose and Sybil make it into the church, but Anna isn't so lucky. Pyramid Head ends up ripping her flesh from her bones and chucking it at the church doors as they close. Inside, the townspeople call Rose and Sybil witches, and soon, the leader, Christabella, shows up to calm the followers. Christabella brings all her people into the center of the church to pray, and outside of town, Chris comes to the orphanage that they adopted Sharon from. He tries to get some information from the nun there, but it turns out that she already called Gucci to handle him. When Chris shows him a picture of Alessa, he takes a second to tell Chris that he knew Alessa, and what the fanatics in Silent Hill did to her was terrible. But it was over. Tell that to the town. Back in Silent Hill, where a girl just had her entire skin suit ripped off of her, it doesn't seem so over in there. Rose and Sybil are set up with an escort to go to the lair of the darkness where Rose thinks she'll find Sharon, and Christabella picks up the locket that she dropped. When they come to the hospital, Christabella gives her a chance to look over the map, but when she gives her the locket, she notices the picture of Sharon. Well, that's enough for her to think that Rose is associated with Alessa, and she has her men attack them. Sybil ends up sacrificing herself to buy Rose enough time to get down to the depths of the hospital. When Rose reaches the bottom, she navigates herself around the corridors by what she memorized from the map. Eventually, she runs into a hallway filled with deformed nurses. As she shines the light on them, they seem to come to life and come after her. Rose ends up sneaking her way past the nurses, and she sets up the flashlight to attract them to it. When she runs through the door at the end, she's blinded by a light, and Alessa congratulates her and tells her that she'll tell her the truth. Alessa was alone because the town thought she was a witch, and Dahlia was convinced by Christabella to let them purify the town of this filthy sin. So, Dahlia gave Alessa up to the church, and they took her to that room by the hotel to be purified. During the ritual, Alessa was accidentally dropped into the fire pit, and it flipped over, which set the building on fire and trapped her under the pit. When Gucci saved her, she was taken to the hospital where she grew hateful. During her time there, the darkness visited Alessa and made a deal with her to get revenge. When Rose comes back to reality, she sees that she's in Alessa's room, and the dark Alessa tells her that they need her. She explains that Sharon is actually the good part of Alessa, and the dark part wants to bring about the reckoning for the town. After finding out that Christabella wants to purify Sharon the same way she tried to with Alessa, she agrees to help. Dark Alessa phases into Rose's body. Meanwhile, Christabella's elders find Sharon in an apartment where she's been hiding with Dahlia. Later at the church, Christabella prepares a huge pyre in the middle of the church, and Sybil is tied up after she was beaten half to death. When Sybil sees Sharon, she assures her that Rose is coming for her, and Christabella tells her followers that everyone that aids the demon will be cleansed too. She lights the pyre, and Sybil is lowered over the fire. Watching Sybil cook away is still kind of impressive to me. I don't know why, there are plenty of other movies that do it too, but this one didn't look like a whole bunch of CGI. Practical effects will always stick with you longer than CGI will. After Sybil burns, they prepare to burn Sharon next, but Rose arrives just in time. As Rose approaches Christabella and confronts her, Christabella pulls out a dagger, stabs her, and claims that she was preaching blasphemy. When Rose's blood hits the floor, it sets free the darkness of Alessa that was housed inside of her. Now that the darkness has been set loose inside the sanctuary, the horrors of Alessa wreak havoc as the real Alessa rises up to face the cult personally. The churchgoers try to run, but Alessa's barbed wire tears them apart one by one. When Dahlia faces Alessa, she sees what her daughter's become, but Alessa focuses on everyone but her. Rose makes it to Sharon, and the two of them just hold each other until the carnage is over. What Rose doesn't see is that dark Alessa approaches Sharon, and it's only then that she passes out. When they come to, the church is silent, and Sharon seems different. They go to leave the church, and they pass Dahlia on the steps. Dahlia asks why Alessa didn't take her too, and Rose explains that Alessa couldn't have done that to her own mother. Rose and Sharon make it to their car, and they drive away from the town now that the road is back. Rose calls Chris while they're on the road, but Chris can't hear anything on the other end. When Rose and Sharon get back to their house, we see that they're in a different dimension than Chris. Then the credits roll. I know Silent Hill gets a lot of criticism, but it's definitely one of my favorite movies. You might even call it a guilty pleasure movie of mine. But anything to keep the Silent Hill franchise alive is great to me. Give it a shot. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more like this one. Comment what you think I should watch next, and I'll see you in the next video.